How's it going, everybody, and welcome to part 2 of this 2-part install and setup tutorial for Bank Heist on CodeFling. So if you didn't have a chance to check out the first video, we briefly just showed how to install, set up, and implement the prefab that comes with Bank Heist. But in this part of the tutorial video, we're going to be going over the full setup of how to get the plugin working in-game. So before we get started, there's a couple of things that we're going to need to get. The first one is MPC spawn. Now these are just dependencies that the plugin needs to work. So MPC spawn by kpuck to jol. Now this plugin here is simply just going to control the NPCs in the AI logic. We're going to need this plugin basically for those NPCs to work. So make sure that you go ahead and get that one. And then the other one that you're going to need is called Telekinesis by White Thunder on UMod. Now essentially what this plugin is going to do is down the road when we're setting up our loot containers and our doors, this plugin is going to give us the ability to move those around and place them with ease. So those are the two plugins that you're going to need to get with Bank Heist. Once you have those three plugins, inside your Oxide directory in your server files, there is a folder for plugins, and you're going to drop all three of those plugins inside. Now, if you have plugin watchers set to true, these plugins should automatically load and kick in and create your configs. But if you have plugin watchers in your Oxide config set to false, then don't forget that you are going to have to individually reload each one of these plugins to get them to kick in and create their configs and be ready to use. So once you've got those two dependencies and Bank Heist in, there's a couple of permissions that we need to set before we get started. So the first one that we want to do is the bankheist.manage and the telekinesis.admin. Now, if you're granting this to an admin group for permissions in your F1 console, it's just o.grant group admin and then bankheist.manage. Same for telekinesis. If you're granting it to a specific user, such as yourself, if you just want yourself to have it, you can do it this way, or if you have yourself a permission manager like admin menu or something like that, then set your permissions and then you'll be ready to go. A couple things to mention as well. Now there's many kits plugins that are out there on the market in the community, but one that I would recommend is Rust Kits by KillU on UMod. It's a super clean UI. It's an easy to use plugin. It's not really hard to set up. There's lots of documentation and stuff like that on this plugin. I'm not really going to go into detail on how to set this plugin up in this video, but I may do one down the road on how to do that. But for now, just if you decide to use a kits plugin, this would be a great one to use, and the reason for this is later on you'll be able to apply those kits to your NPCs in the bank. So once you've got all of that set up and ready to go, then we are ready to start getting into and setting up the bank profile. So I'm going to be using the bank that we used in our initial video, the prefab that comes with the plugin. Now, just something to note, you don't have to use this bank, right? If you have your own prefab that you've made, or you've purchased another bank or something like that off of CodeFling, nice thing about this plugin is it can be set up with absolutely any prefab, really. There's even an option and a way to parent it to specific monuments around. So if you wanted to set up a bank at the launch site, you could do that. If you wanted to set up a train yard, I'm going to show how to do that a little bit later on in the video. But another cool thing too is that you're not limited to just one bank. You could have 3 or 4 or 5 different banks on your map running at the same time as you create each profile. So in this case, we're going to be using this one, and so to start, the first thing that you're going to want to do is find yourself a good center point to the prefab that you're using. For me, it's going to be right about here. This is pretty good to the center of this prefab. And then what we're going to type is we're going to type BHM create. Now in this case, I'm doing a test, so we're going to call this bank test. Now you can create this bank and call it whatever you want, but for this video, I'm going to create and call it test. So now you can see that the test bank is now available, and we have now created the profile successfully. So this is the profile that we're going to be building off of. Now, really quickly, before we get too deep into this tutorial, I just wanted to quickly touch base on parent entities and to explain that so it makes a little bit more sense. So if you're an individual where if you're a server owner where you don't really change maps that often, or you're planning on using the same map, and you don't plan on moving the bank's always going to be in the same place, then this next step isn't really going to be beneficiary for you, right? This next step, when it's parenting to an entity, is simply if down the road you change your map and then you put the same prefab that we're using for this bank or any bank, we move it to say L7. What it's going to do is the profile that we're about to set up with the doors, the NPCs, and the loot, right? That profile is going to parent to the entity that we set, so that in the event that you ever wipe or you change maps and you change the position of the bank, you won't need to set up the entire bank again. But you will if you don't parent it and you want to change to a new bank. So just something to keep in mind there. To explain a little bit what I mean by that, is in our initial video that we did the setup, you'll remember at the very end of the video we named the floor Bank Heist. Now that's because the plugin is looking for that specific name. So if you have your own prefab that you're using for this, or something you've created, you just simply need to pick something in here. It can be anything. It can be even a typewriter, and over here your quick create from selection, you want to call it Bank Heist and save your prefab. Once you've done that, then you are able to parent your profile to that specific prefab that you've created in the event that you move it. So in this case, I do have a parent entity, so I'm going to use that option, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that and set up my bank profile based on my parent entity. So it's going to be /BHM parent, the name of the bank that we just created, and then the name of that prefab. And then you can see that the bank has now updated successfully. Once I've done that, I'm going to o.reload Bank Heist. And the reason why I'm reloading this right now is so that the plugin can grab the name of that parent. So going forward, the rest of the setup that we do, whether it be loot, NPCs, they're now going to position themselves relevant to the rotation of that prefab. And that's what's going to help where if you move your bank later, everything's going to place and be in the exact same place you set it up here. So we are now ready to start setting up our bank. And what we're going to do first is we're going to start with the door profiles. So I'm just going to come down here to where our first door is going to go. Now, to give you a little idea of some selections that you have, if you type /BSE in chat, you're going to get a prefab list on the left-hand side. So you can see that you can use garage doors, vault doors, top tier D door. So there's 4 different selections of doors that you can choose. It doesn't have to be a vault door, it can be whatever you want. But in my case, because I already have the vault selection and layout, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the vault door. So to do that and spawn in our door, we're going to go BSE vault door. Now it has to be spelled the same way as that prefab list. And then what you're going to notice is it has put our door in. But it's not really where we want it, right? So this is where telekinesis is going to come into play. And simply all you have to do is come up to the prefab and type /TLS. You can now see that I've got the prefab and I can move and drag it wherever I want. Telekinesis is super easy to use. When you first start picking up the prefab, you're in move forward and back mode. If you hit left click, you're going to move the prefab away from you. If you hit right click, you're going to bring it close to you. I like to put it nice and far away. Now if you hit the R key on your keyboard, you can switch to up and you can switch to down with your left and right keys, right? So there's lots of different things that you can do with it. Same with the axes. You can change to the X, the Y, the Z, however you want to rotate this door to make it kind of how you want it and make it perfect. Now this part might take you a little bit of time, but really, you know, take your time placing your doors and get them to fit where you want them to be. Once you've got it in the right position, all you have to simply do is press enter, and that's going to lock it in. So now you can see that it's not moving around anymore, and we're going to retype /TLS to disable telekinesis, right? So now we've got our door position, which is great. That's where we want it. But what we need to do now is add it to our profile. So what we're going to do is we're going to do /BHM door create, and then test, because that's the name of our bank, right? So we're going to press enter, and you can see that bank has now been updated successfully. So we don't need this monument here anymore, or this prefab here anymore, sorry. So we're going to get rid of that bank door, because what we've done is we've now added that into our profile, and when we reload, we're going to capture all the doors at once. So really quickly, we're going to go through and do our other 2 doors. And now, you can do as many as you want. So if your bank accommodates 5 or 6 doors, then go around and place 5 or 6 doors. It is completely up to you, right? So /BSE, I'm using Vault Door in this instance, and then I'm moving it with /TLS again. So as we can see, it's a little bit high. I'm going to bring it out a little bit there. And this is the part that can take a little bit of finesse, but I mean, I really like this telekinesis. It makes it so much easier to move them around. And then same thing, we're going to do /TLS to deselect. So there's door number 2 placed in. We're going to go up, we're going to go /BHM, door, create, and then the name of our bank, which is test. Bank has now been successfully updated. We can now go in and we can kill that door. And then we've got one more door to place up top, which is over here. /BSE vault door, and then we're going to go grab that door with /TLS, and we're going to bring this over, and again find that nice little sweet spot where you want to put it. We'll say come on that way. Yeah, right there looks good. And then we'll do /TLS. And then same thing, /BHM, door, create, and then test. And I can now do kill. Now, those are all done. They are now part of our profile. So if I go into o.reload and I reload up Bank Heist as such, you will now see that when the plugin reloads, it's going to have all 3 doors part of its connected profile. In this case, it's connected to our parent entity in case we move the prefab. So these doors now are going to be their permanent position. You're also going to notice that they have an ID up top. So one door is 7177, one is 8229, and one is 4908. So a really cool feature that was added is that if you want to individually add some customization to your doors, so let's say you want this door to have 7,000 health, or you want that door to have 6,000, and you want that door to have 4,000, you can do that individually with each one. And simply what we're going to do is we're going to create a door profile for them. So in order to do that, all you have to do is /BDP and then create, and we'll call it door 1. So basically bank door profile create door 1. So there you can see the profile has now been successfully created. But I need to know what that ID number is now, because now what we're going to do is basically attach that profile to the door. So we're going to do /BHM debug test, and in this case we want to see the door, right? So we can see that that's 7177. So we're going to go /BHM door profile test, and the door ID is 7177, and then we're going to attach it to the profile we just created. And there we go. Bank has been updated successfully. And then if we wanted to create another one, such as door 2, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to create another separate profile, and I'll show you why we're creating these profiles in a second. But BDP create door 2. We're going to call this one 2. So bank door profile create door 2. We've now created that profile. BGM debug test door, and this one here is 4908, so we're going to attach that one /BHM door profile test, and the door ID is 4908, and we're going to attach that to door 2 profile. Bank has now been updated successfully. Now, if you've done that correctly, what you're going to end up with in your data folder, so you can see here in our data folder that you've got in your Oxide data under Bank Heist, you should now have a door profile storage JSON that's been created. And what that's going to look like is we've got our door 1 and our door 2. So you can keep going. You can create door 3 and door 4 and door 5 and door 6, however many that you want to create. But the nice nice part is now is if we wanted this door to have 5,000 health and we wanted this one to have 3,000 and be a little bit different in our different difficulties, this gives you that flexibility now where you can make it really unique. And if you're using a garage door, so remember when you type /BSE, you have multiple options. If you're using a garage door, you can even skin those doors independently. And there are multiple skins that you can find off the Steam Workshop for Rust. There's plenty of skins there with the Steam IDs that you can put in and make your door look however you want it to look. So that is basically doors. And there's nothing really else to do with those. So once we've got our doors placed, we can now move on to the NPC placement. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come over here, and the NPCs are pretty straightforward to place. So what we're going to do is we're going to do /BHM, and then we're going to do guard create, and then we're going to put the name of the bank beside it. Now I'm going to highlight this whole piece. I'm going to hold Control C, which is going to copy this, and then I'm going to press backspace and enter so that I can move around and kind of start where I'm going to start putting my NPCs. So I'm going to put one NPC here, so you can see that that's now updating. Everywhere that I put a guy is where we're putting an NPC. So now I'm using Control and V together, which will paste that for you and kind of speed up that process a little bit when it comes to placing your NPCs, right? So we can kind of place them all around wherever we want them to be. Maybe we can put a couple in here. I'm not going to go too overboard, but you can place as many as you want in your bank or whatever prefab you're putting them to. Get creative with it and see where you want to put them or how you want to do them, right? So once that part is done and we've gone around and we've put them in all the positions that we want them to be, now what we're going to do is we're going to reload the Bank Heist plugin again. And that's going to load it up. But this time when it loads up, we should have NPCs with our vault doors, right? So just give that a second. And there we go. So we can see all those positions are now where we've just placed our NPCs and put them into our bank. So we got some NPCs walking around. But now we want to customize them. And there's a few different things that we can do. So the first one being, if you wanted to change every NPC in your bank to be wearing all the same stuff, right? So you want them all to be the same, right? The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do /BGP, so bank guard profile, create, and we're going to call this default. Now the reason I'm calling this specific profile default is all the NPCs that are part of this plugin are under the default category. So if I create my profile, I have now created it. Now I want to give some items to that profile. Now there's a couple of ways that we can do that. We can either go to a website here called the Corrosion Hour, which you can search any Rust name and you can put it in. So you can put in the item ID, you can put in the short name or the display name, whatever it is that you want to do. You can set it up manually that way in the config if you choose. But nice little feature that was added is we can make this a lot easier. So if I go into my items, let's say the Abyss gun, and I want to take the chicken costume. So I'm going to go ahead and stick that on, right? So I just created my profile for the default NPCs. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to go /BGP update default, right? So what this is going to do is it's now going to grab the items from my inventory and it's going to update the kit or the loadout that these NPCs are going to use. So I press enter, profile has been updated successfully, and now if I go and I o.reload Bank Heist like this, you can see that everybody should be walking around in chicken costumes with the Abyss gun here. So let's just wait for that to load and I'll show you. And so what we've done is we've told every NPC that we want you all to look like chickens with the Abyss gun. So as you can see, they've all changed now, right? But if you want to change individual NPCs, so you want to get creative and you want to make some different profiles, so maybe you want to have some snipers on the roof, maybe you want to have some shotgun guys for close range or some pistol guys, right? You can do individual the same way we did with the vault doors and the IDs. We can do the exact same thing. So what we can do is we can do /BPG, and then we can do create, and we'll just call this guard 1, right? So we'll do slash. So bank BGP, sorry, bank guard profile, create guard 1, right? So we've created that profile now. But now we want to attach it to one of the NPCs. So if we do BHM debug, test is the name of our bank, so whatever the name of your bank is. But instead of doing doors this time, we're going to do guards. Or sorry, it's guard. So slash BGM debug test guard. Like so. So this guard here is number 6449. And so it's the same thing that we did with the vault doors. Slash BAM or BGM guard profile test. And that guard ID is 6449. And we're going to call that guard 1 to add it to that profile that we just set. So bank has now been updated successfully, right? And same thing. So we want to make this guy a little bit different, right? So we want to make him, I don't know, army guy with a, let's go, oh, I don't know, yeah, an L96, right? So we're going to slap that on you and give him this gun here, put these ones in the inventory so you can see this. Now we're going to go slash, and then it is BGP update guard 1, right? Profile has been updated successfully. So now if I go into o.reload, bank heist, you'll see that every guard is still in the chicken suit except for this one individual guy that we wanted to make stand out from the crowd. And you can do that with all NPCs, and you can go through and set them up however you want. So you're going to see that 6449 now, he looks a little bit different. He's his own individual guy. And that's the customization that's been added to this, where you can really go into depth with how you set up your bank. And again, the nice part is you only have to do it once. Now, once you've created those profiles, the same thing as the door, it's going to create in your data folder. This is now where it's going to create your guard profile storage. So here you can see there's our guard 1, that bank guard that we created. And in here is where, as I spoke about at the beginning, where you can change the kits for the guard. So if you use kill use kits or any of the community's kits and you create a kit, you can simply apply the kits to those guards, right? You can also change how much health they have. Now, when it comes to their roam range, my suggestion to you is keeping it between 5 to 10, and even on the default profile for all NPCs, keep it to 5 to 10. If you make it 25 when they're indoors, they will get locked up, they'll get stuck, or they'll group in corners, and it just looks really weird. So, and there's some other options here that you can go through, pretty self-explanatory. Chase range, you know, how far can they sense you, how far can they hear you, you know, how, you know, their attack range multiplier, their vision cone, if you want to use that, right? So there's lots of things in here that you can go through. Now, the states at the bottom, so currently they're using roam state, chase state, combat state, and combat stationary state. Now, if you wanted them to just be stationary, you'd simply just come in and just remove the chase and the roam state, right? So they're only got combat and the stationary. Now that NPC is not going to move. So way more customization than before, a lot more that you can do with your guard profiles. I think it's pretty awesome, and really just kind of ties that all together. So the final part now, so that's NPCs, that's all done. One thing I just wanted to mention too, if there's a guard that you wanted to remove or delete, the command is simply slash BHM guard remove, right? And then the bank name, which is test, and then of course you'll put in the NPC's ID, which could be 6447 or whatever that ID is, right? You're going to use that debug command to look and see what the ID number is. Now, each one is individual. When you're doing that debug, it's door, it's guard, and then there's loot, right? So next one we're going to do is our loot. So I'm only going to place a couple of crates, but just know that you can place as many as humanly possible. If you want to go crazy in here and place them, then go for it. So it's the same thing with our BSE command, except not doors now, but underneath you can see there's hackable crate, elite crate, crate normal, and crate normal 2. So here I want to do slash BSE, and I want to put a hackable dash crate right here, right? So it is in, and then we can do our slash TLS if it needs to. I mean, if you get it in pretty good, then don't worry about it. But yeah, I mean, you can go around, you can rotate it, get it nice and set up to how you want it, right? And then slash TLS. Now the same thing with our vault doors. Once we put our loot in, we've got to add it into our profile. So we're going to go slash BHM loot and then crate and then test. Oops, slash BHM loot create test. And then that's been updated successfully, right? And then now what we can do is we can kill this because we no longer need it. And then let's go put maybe one more case somewhere else. And like I said, you can spend time with this, take your time, place lots of crates, make it fun for the players. There's lots of options. You don't only have to place the 2 crates like I am here. But we're going to go slash BSE. And so we'll do an elite crate for this one. We'll do a different one. So we'll do elite dash crate and we'll spawn that in. I'm not going to use the slash TLS command because that's pretty good where it is, and we'll just leave it at that. So slash BHM and then loot create and then the name of the bank. While looking at it, we've now updated that and we can now kill that out. So, and you can keep going. So if you wanted to put loot up here or over here or whatever crates and stuff that you want to put them in, you can go through and you can do that. At this point, after you've placed your crates, you're going to want to go ahead and reload Bank Heist now to load them in with the profile so that they load in with our NPCs and they load in with our vault doors, and now our loot is going to load in as well. So we'll just give that a second to load. So that is loaded, and we can see that our crate elite is there, and we can see that our hack crate down here is there. Now, same thing that we did before with the other stuff, we can create profiles for these, and we can individually set loot, or if you wanted to do it where you don't set your own individual loot, then basically what it's going to do is it's just going to pull the loot of whatever your default loot is. So if you're using alpha loot or better loot or magic loot, or you're using no loot, you're just using the default rust loot, that's what it's going to pull if you don't set a profile. It's just going to use whatever default loot you're using, right? But in this case, let's just have some fun with it just to show you how we do it. We're going to create a profile for this. Now, the same way we created the profiles for the vault doors and the same way we created profiles for the NPCs, this one's going to be slash BLP. So bank loot profile is the same thing. And we're going to call it create, and we'll call this hack 1, like that. Profile has now been created, right? So we've created the hack 1, but now we need to attach this. So we need to know what it is. So BHM debug test, and this time we want to see the loot, right? And we can see that that's 5188. So now we're going to go slash BHM loot profile. Then we're going to go test, and the loot ID is 5188, and we're going to attach it to the hack 1 profile that we put in. Bank has now been updated. Now, in your items, you can go through and you can set what you want your loot to be. So if you want players to get L9s out of the hack crate, rocket launchers, grenades, like the sky's your limit. You guys pick your loot tables. You can put some ammo in there, maybe some rockets in there, you know, maybe a little bit of food, something, you know, whatever you want to do. Get creative with your loot tables, all that fun stuff. And this is what we're going to use for that loot table, or again you can set it manually in the config. So it's just simply all you have to do to do that is we're going to go slash BLP update now, and what we called it was hack 1, and that is now using the items that are set from here. Same thing with the other stuff. It's going to create a loot profile, so you can see hack 1, and that is now what is creating your in your data in your Bank Heist. That's your loot profile storage, which is now being created. So in here you can change your min and max items. So you know, if you've decided that you put a full row of 24 items in here, right, and out of those 24 items you only want it to pull 8 and 6, that's going to make it pretty random on what it pulls, right? So it's not going to be every item every time, but it'll be 8 of those items every time, right? You can also go down, and here's where you can change those short names while using the Corrosion Hour website if you wanted to do them manually. You can do that. You can also change the hackable seconds of the crate since it's a hack crate, things like that. You can go down, change the amounts that are given. Is it a blueprint? So lots of options. You can even set in here, because I've set 1,000 ammo, that is going to be what it is, but you can set the min and max so that it's not exactly 1,000. You can make it so, 355 spawn or 458 spawn, right? So that is the loot crates and how to put them in and customize your different things. So that's basically Bank Heist in a nutshell. What we've got now is we've got our NPCs, we've got our loot, and we've got our vault doors placed. But there's still a few things that we can do, a few other customizable options that I just wanted to go over. So if I go back to the documentation, we can see that there is a direct kind of, showing you what the config would show you, right? So time between resets, when you set this command here, all this is going to do is the time that the bank is over, when it's finished and all the NPCs are dead and loot is robbed and the players have left the zone here, as you can see, the big dome, that's when that timer is going to start ticking in. So in this case, after 1800 seconds, the bank would reset for the next people to come along. You've got your alarm timeout. So every time the hack crates are being hacked and the bank doors are being robbed, alarms are going to go off. That's if you have that set. And then you can set how long that is. And then you can also put alarm disable when all crates are looted. True. Otherwise, it's just going to keep playing, right? The other things to keep in mind is you can change your map marker radius. You can change, the opacity. Opacity pretty much means, how see-through is this going to be? How green is this going to be? Is it going to be really, really light green, see-through? You can kind of customize that and make it how you want. And the other one that I wanted to point out was the player detection radius 100. That is the radius of this bubble here. So if you increase that to be bigger, it's basically going to detect when a player is in here doing the bank and prevent it from resetting later, right? So that's pretty much it for the setup of that portion. And then there's a couple of other options in your configurations. You can enable notifications, visible bubble, enable visible marker, alarm trigger. So if you don't want the alarm, some people don't, some people do, you can true false that. The enable eliminate guards, if you have that set to true, your players will not be able to loot any of the loot, even if they blow up the doors, until all of the NPCs have been shot and killed. So kind of a nice little way to do that. You can also enable the zone messages. What the zone messages will do, if you have it set to true, is when you leave this zone, it'll say you are leaving the bank. If you come in, it'll say you are entering the bank. So you can decide how you want to set that up, right? Now, they prevent worker looting bank. There was one more permission that I didn't really get into at the beginning. But if you're running yourself a PvE server and it's more of kind of like a role play server, and you want to give specific players the bank heist worker permission, what that'll do is make it so that the bank guards that are in here currently right now that would shoot at you, they'll leave you alone if you're a bank worker. Where if you're doing a role play and you're behind here and other players are coming to rob the bank and that's what you want to do, that option is there and able for you to customize if you choose to do that. So kind of a nice little feature on that one. The last little thing I wanted to get into was the BHM monuments. Now, this is kind of a cool thing where I said to you, you can have more than one bank profile, right? So we've done our test over here, but what I'm going to do is let's make the gas station over here. Like I said, it can be anything, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to do /BHM monuments. Now, when we talked about parenting entities at the beginning, this is going to allow you to parent any of your profiles to any of the monuments, so that if you have a new map and you place another gas station or a launch site or an airfield, it's going to load up your bank profile the same way we did where we named the entity prefab of the bank heist, right? So we do /BHM monuments, and we can see there that it's gas station _1. So we're going to create a second bank profile with /BHM create. I guess I shouldn't do it up in the air. Let's find a center point here. Yeah, never be in no clip when you're doing that. So we're going to do /BHM, and then we're going to do create, and the name of this bank will just be gas station, like so. So that bank profile is now created, but now same thing, we want to parent it to it, right? So if we go /BHM monuments, you can see that that's called gas station 1. So it's the same thing like we did with the other one. We can do BHM parent, and the name of this bank was gas station, and then we can just parent it to gas underscore station underscore 1. I think I called it gas station, and bank is updated successfully. So now we've parented it to that, and then it's the same thing. You're going to go into here and you're going to go o.reload bank and then heist, like so. Right? And when that's reloaded, you're now going to see that we've got 2 banks on the map. So you're starting to create a profile over here. You've got a profile over here. And it's the same thing when creating the bank profile. You're essentially just going to go in and you're going to set it up the same way that we've done over here. So go back to the beginning of this video and you can watch it again. But you've now got your 2 banks to run with. So now you can set up, let's say you wanted to turn this into a garage door where players have to blow through here to get inside, right? Absolutely amazing job to the developer on this. It's come leaps and bounds, and I just think that it's so more customizable than it's ever been. So I hope this tutorial helped. I hope it's shown everybody everything that they could possibly need to know with Bank Heist, and hopefully this has made things a little bit easier. Stay tuned for more videos in the future, and thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.